bringing the people behind our food to life.
The whole story is basically goes back to the fact that my dad went to a meeting in Washington one time in Seattle, and one of the members brought a bunch of boxes of some really extra prime fruit. It was real nice quality stuff. The new spur type Golden Delicious was just coming along into bearing, and he was making it available to the people at the meeting. My father was a naturopath, so it was a meeting of doctors actually, and he liked them so much that he bought a box of them and brought them back with him when he came back home to Salem, Oregon. And we could go out in the back and take an apple and eat it. And what do you do with the core when you're done? You don't throw that in a wastebasket because it draws flies and makes a mess. So we take it out by the back door of the office and throw the cores in the flower beds. Nobody seemed to mind that, and it didn't hurt. But of course, after a couple of years, there were seedlings growing in the flower bed. It took them a year or so to get started and to grow enough to be visible. And one of them looked particularly good, at least as far as vigor and strength and everything. So rather than throw it away or just dig it out and clean out the flower bed, I dug it out and took it out to where we were living in Salem and planted it. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? Because I know it's not going to come true from seed. And about that time, I was a student at Oregon State University, and one of my professors offered me some cuttings of Cox's orange pippin, which is the favorite apple. It's kind of the standard of apples in England. And I'd heard about it, and I thought, well, it would be good to try. So I got some science from him, and I planted the apple tree, this seedling there, and grafted it to this Cox's orange pippin. And after I don't know, it was 3 or 4 years or so, it came into bearing, and my folks really liked the apple a lot. So much so that when they built this place out here, I decided rather than just leave the tree there, I'd take the effort to move it. So I took my pickup truck out in the back where the tree was, and I proceeded to dig. And I had to dig a root ball, or at least a root mass about 6 feet in diameter. I couldn't take much dirt with it. It was just too big, and it took everything I had to get it into the truck, so I put it in the back of the pickup truck and it filled it. And I wrapped a tarp around it, and that was about a 20-mile trip. And I got out here and got busy and dug like a bandit to get a hole big enough for it. And then I just slid the tree off so that it landed roots first in the hole, and there it stayed because it was too big and too heavy to even do a turn or adjust it. But I got it in the right way because I had unloaded it just pretty much the same direction that I had put it in the tree in the truck in the first place, and that was it. And so it has been here ever since. But in the meantime, I got realizing that the tree wasn't very productive because it was down here by the house, too far away from the rest of the orchard where there were other apples to pollinate it. So the first thing I did was I tried a German variety called Holstein, which was a seedling of Cox's orange pippin. And I figured that would be nice because I'd have two similar type apples coming on the tree at slightly different times. Holstein is an earlier variety than Cox, but it's supposed to have similar flavor. The only problem was that I discovered that after I had grafted it and it was growing, that Holstein is what's known as a triploid. It has 3 sets of chromosomes. Well, that wouldn't be a bad thing by itself because it still sets fruit, but the problem is that it means that it doesn't have good pollen. It has to be pollinated by something else that has good pollen in order to be able to produce fruit. So I'd put on a pollinator that didn't have pollen, didn't have any decent pollen on it, so I still wasn't any farther ahead than I had been. It starts right up in here. Here's one limb here. So finally I took a piece of Liberty apple and grafted it up into the top of the tree. And the first year that it bore, the tree almost broke itself with fruit. It came out to be something of an unusual experiment in plant breeding because Liberty is a scab-resistant apple, and it's also fairly resistant to rust. It's not real good on mildew, but it'll get some mildew. But the point is that by allowing it to be pollinated by Cox's orange pippin, the offspring of it have the potential to be a Cox's orange pippin type or have something of that flavor. And the Liberty has a good flavor, so the two should combine fairly well. The point being that I have sent seed out from the Liberty over the years to various places and people who have been growing them out looking for offspring of the two that might have all the best disease resistance and flavor characteristics of the two parents. So it came out to be a kind of a plant breeding experiment without it necessarily having been intended to be. But as I say, the tree we sort of think of it as our family tree in a way, because it started because of my father and his bringing the apples back, and then continued through all these decades now. It's been about almost 40 years since the tree was first started as a seedling. And it's been with us all that time.